So I just thought that if the HOV exclusion does go away in 2017, as near as I can tell, and my dog can tell, that would help a bunch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mike Morstein and then Stu Whitaker. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Secretary and board members. My concern is with what I've seen on the Transform 66 website for the service, the project outside the Beltway, with regard to there being proposed initially being a median sufficient to support an extension of what would almost certainly be the orange line further out beyond Vienna right now. In my most recent reading on it a few weeks ago, the project is now being phased, and as far as I can tell, most of the phasing in phase one takes care of the nearly all of the road component of it. Phase two, as far as I can tell, and in talking with some of the VDOT consultants at previous meetings, there is no timetable nor funding for whatever phase two would be, whenever it would be. So it seems to me that this project is going a long way to precluding the extension of the orange line out 66. And if an agreement, a PPP agreement with some provider to operate it precludes it without a massive payment from the state, I just find that outrageous, and I don't think that should be considered by the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Stu Whitaker, and then Paul Showalter. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for trying to stay awake through these long hearings. I want to speak on behalf of transit riders in opposition to this. There's an old and apt cliche that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Do we know where we want to go in terms of local transportation? I know members of the Commonwealth Transportation Board are from all over Virginia, but you all must be familiar with the TPB, the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the region. After what the TPB describes as an extensive 3-year public outreach, the TPB articulated goals and objectives. Goal 1, the Washington Metropolitan Region's transportation system will provide reasonable access at reasonable cost to everyone in the region. Objective 1 reads a comprehensive range of choices for users in the region's transportation system. I think the TPB's vision articulates where we should go in terms of transportation, and I think there are a few key questions we should ask about this and other transportation projects. First, what does it mean to provide reasonable access at reasonable cost to everyone? I don't think that means we should have a system for white people and a system for black people, or a system for poor people and a system for rich people. That's what we have today. Take our local bus system. Metro reports that the majority of people riding Metro Rail are white. The vast majority, 75%, of the people riding buses are non-white. After Hurricane Katrina, researchers studied car ownership to understand who was and who was not able to move safely as the hurricane bore down on the city. What they found is that 19% of non-white households didn't have access to automobiles. They were dependent on public transportation. Non-white households are 4 times as likely to be without access to an automobile as white households. I hope no such disaster befalls this area, but reasonable access at reasonable cost with a comprehensive range of choices should be provided for everyone. So is this really a multimodal solution like VDOT likes to say? The I-66 multimodal study inside the Beltway from August 2013 shows current mode share of 70% automobile. Projected mode share in 2040 under the current proposal is 72% automobile. Yes, auto mode share is projected to increase. That doesn't sound like multimodal to me. It sounds more like unimodal. What about outside the Beltway? The Tier 1 draft environmental assessment dated May 2015 reports average share in the corridor outside the Beltway is 91% automobile, despite a number of requests to and promises from VDOT staff. No one has ever provided projections for future mode share, so I don't know what those projections might be.
Ask you to wrap up, sir, please.
Thank you very much. I think there are a number of reasons that this project should be opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Paul Showalter, and then David Dixon. Stevie.
Thank you all very much for coming up here today and allowing us to share our concerns with you. It saved everybody a long trip down very congested highways to get to the Norfolk area. I'm Paul Showalter, and I do live in Arlington, and I was actually the person that asked that question at the Arlington meeting about how many people supported the project. I wasn't surprised when only a couple of people raised their hands. I urge you to vote no on this proposal. If nothing else, send it back to VDOT for more study. But if you don't do that, kill it. Kill it quickly. It's a bad idea, and a bad idea to start with. VDOT basically said, this is what we're going to do, and then said, when they were asked, oh, I guess we should talk to the public once again and maybe hear what they want to say. And overwhelmingly, people have been opposed to this project. Tolling inside and outside the Beltway is not a good idea. They talk about the single drivers on 66. Well, think about this. Let's say half of those people who are driving on 66 today, not legally, decide that they want to pay the toll. Then you have 50% of those drivers that have to find some other way to get where they're going, and they're going to dump them off on the side roads. And there isn't a plan to deal with that. If you look at Washington Boulevard, Route 50 and all those, they're already congested coming in the morning, going out in the evening. When I used to sell Tupperware, I used to have to take Route 50 to get out to Manassas. And I'll tell you, that was not pleasant to have to drive that far in that kind of traffic. I hated it. I finally found somebody else who was willing to go with me to those meetings so that I could actually ride 66. And that made it more pleasurable. But you had to go before the time changed. If you increase the time to 4 hours for the rush hour, it's going to make the side roads even worse. And I don't think you're going to end up with any benefit. I appreciate your coming. I appreciate your listening. And I really hope that you vote no for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have an announcement to make. A dark-colored Ford Edge SUV with license tag, Virginia tags BEAVO. There's been an accident in the parking lot, so if that is your vehicle, I think there's someone out there who has hit it. Next is David Dixon, and then Tom Bissardny. Mr. Dixon, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Secretary. I must say I would agree with Delegate Marshall. The podium would have been nice, but that's okay. I hope you can hear me. Good to see you again, Mr. Secretary. Welcome to Northern Virginia, members of the Commonwealth Transportation Board. I am an Arlington resident. I serve on the Arlington Transportation Commission and the Arlington Transit Advisory Committee. And I also have been very familiar with this project since 2012 when I worked for the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club as their Green Transportation Program Manager. And today I serve as the Volunteer Transportation Chair for the local Mount Vernon group of the Sierra Club. However, this evening I'm speaking strictly as a resident of Arlington who is familiar with the project. And let me say that I support that I'm speaking strictly on inside the Beltway, Transform I-66, and that I support the project and the memorandum of agreement that was approved by the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission last week. And I commend you, Mr. Secretary, and VDOT and DRPT in your leadership in working for the project goals that are to move more people through the corridor, enhance connectivity within the corridor, and provide new travel choices for people traveling in the corridor. And I also commend VDOT for the very large amount of public outreach that is going on, and for the cooperation with local jurisdictions as evidenced by the Memorandum of Agreement. However, I do have a concern with the potential negative impacts of widening I-66 inside the Beltway, particularly in Arlington with regard to 4 Mile Run, the neighborhoods, the two major bicycle multi-purpose paths that run along the roadway. And I'm also concerned that the provisions of the memorandum of agreement may lead to a finding that results in the unnecessary widening of the roadway. Number one, I don't think the agreement provides for enough time for the benefits of the multimodal improvements, the dynamic tolling, and the enhanced transportation demand management measures to be realized before VDOT evaluates the effectiveness and whether or not widening is needed. And then I've been rehearsing how to explain this all the way from Chevy Chase, where I came from work this evening. Then I have concern about the criterion to be used to determine the effectiveness of these measures and to make a determination whether or not widening is needed. And I'm not an engineer, I'm not a planner, I'm not very good at models. But common sense tells me that using a 50 mile per hour, does that mean my time is up?
Yes, sir, if you'd wrap
You
up a
don't
little
even
bit.
have a warning light or anything. Okay, I recommend either setting the dynamic tolling to 50 miles per hour inside the Beltway, or lower the criteria for measuring the effectiveness of tolling to 45 miles per hour, so that you get rid of that inconsistency. Thank you for your listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Tom Basadny, and then Cindy, I think it's Nelgott. Good morning, sir.
Good evening,
afternoon,
Mr.
sir.
Secretary, members of the Commonwealth Transportation Board. My name is Tom Basadny. I'm the Director of Fairfax County's Department of Transportation. I'm speaking to you tonight because the Board of Supervisors has a meeting with the Northern Virginia, or the Fairfax County delegation of the General Assembly tonight. I-66 is a critically important facility for Fairfax County, and the county is in the unique position that it is directly affected by both the inside and the outside the Beltway projects. As such, the board does recommend that there be a strategic plan for the corridor adopted so that things like tolling policy and HOV requirements and all that be coordinated between the inside and the outside of the Beltway project to provide continuity. The board has not taken a formal position on inside the Beltway, but they have adopted comments. They do support the goals of the Inside the Beltway project, including increasing person throughput, improving travel times, reducing congestion, increasing travel choices, and improving travel conditions on local roads. The board does believe that widening I-66 between the toll road and Ballston is essential to reducing congestion, and it is a proper use of the toll road revenue. The board supports eliminating the triggers and moving forward with the design for the widening. If there are to be triggers, the board suggests that those should be peak period speed of not less than 55 miles an hour in both the flow and counterflow direction. They do suggest that the evaluation period include both a half an hour before and after tolling, and that the parallel roadways be included in that analysis. It does believe that any negative impacts on parallel roadways should be high priorities for the use of the excess toll road revenues, and also that the toll rate should be kept reasonable. The board is also concerned that the toll revenues not be used to reduce any other regular maintenance or operating funds that would be coming to Northern Virginia or the local governments. Related to outside the Beltway, the board has endorsed the preferred alternative, but there are a couple of issues that the board wants to continue to work with the Commonwealth on. That includes continuing to minimize the right-of-way impacts on residents, schools, businesses, and parks, and natural resources in the corridor. We do appreciate the work that's already been done, but would like to continue to work with you to reduce those impacts. In addition, in reconstructing the interchanges, the board understands that putting some of the ramps in the median is appropriate for cost savings as part of this project, but wants to make sure that we don't preclude the future extension of Metro Rail. And part of that could be acquiring property to allow those ramps to be relocated in the future. The board does support reliable bus service in the corridor,